As you may remember our last video, we successfully got telephone numbers and the company I would suggest you go to because it went so easily is AIS. AIS gives unlimited internet for only 200 baht a month. My wife got it about 6 months ago for 300 baht, but they've actually lowered the price to 200 baht. And it went really smoothly. There are other good companies in Thailand for sure, but my choice and my wife's choice is AIS.
Welcome to Together Somewhere. We just arrived back in Thailand from America, and we are so happy to be back in the land of smiles.
We hope you'll come along with us as we continue our journey exploring the wonderful culture of Thailand with all its tropical beauty. We will try to show you as much as we can, from Thailand's scenic beaches and coastline to its tropical forests and mountains. So be sure to travel together somewhere in Thailand with us.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Now, you might remember we had a little trouble opening a bank account, right? If you want to open a bank account in Thailand, there's some specific requirements needed, and all those. Also, there's some specific hurdles you have to get over, even if you meet the requirements. So let me go over the requirements. The first is to have a passport and at least one additional ID, like a driver's license. That was asked of me at every bank I went to. The second thing is to have a visa, and by visa I mean something 3 months or longer. It really helps to have a retirement visa like a non-immigrant O, a student visa, a work visa, something like that. They're not looking for people who are tourists. If you are a tourist, the chance, that doesn't have a place to stay except a hotel, the chance of you opening a bank account is next to nil. The third thing, as I just mentioned, is a place to stay. It helps to have a 6-month to 1-year lease minimum, or a permanent place that you're staying that you can prove. For instance, when because my wife has a family here, I usually use her address if I haven't signed a lease at that time. But that's something that it's an area luckily I fall into, but most of you aren't going to have that. So having a long-term lease or some place you're staying that you can prove on paper is very, very helpful. Now, you can have all this, and every bank that we talk to, except the one that finally let me open an account there, has all sorts of requirements. Not one bank, not all banks have the same requirements, which makes it kind of a, what can you call it? It's like a shot in the dark. Walk into banks and malls, tell them you want to open a savings account, and then they will slowly mention these additional requirements that you need, even if you meet the first 3 or 4 that I just talked about. One requirement that a couple banks talked about was they'll say there's this embassy form that you need to fill out, proving that you are actually who you are. I have a friend who did this, who went to a bank and they asked him for it, and it was also asked of me in 2 banks just today. And he went to his embassy to get this simple 1-page form filled out, and he had to make an appointment to go back 4 days later. So it is really inconvenient. My suggestion is, unless you really want to open an account at the bank that has this requirement, I wouldn't bother doing it. It's not worth your time. One last thing I'd like to mention about that is, you give them your passport and your driver's license. You would think that's enough proof that you are who you are, but there are 1 or 2 banks that will insist that you go to your embassy and get this form filled out. Another one is if you're married, like me. We had one bank say that they wanted us, and we showed them our wedding license. And first of all, I don't even know why they wanted it, because I was opening an account for myself. It wasn't an account for my wife and I, but they just found out that I was married to a Thai. So they wanted proof of our marriage license. And that will take at least a couple days to go. You have to find someone who will translate that for you, and of course there's a fee. So that's also really, really inconvenient and will take you out of the way. Now, if you're an American, you run into an additional problem of, if you get past the bank allowing you to open an account, you usually have additional paperwork. I was shocked when they pulled out a W-9 form, which is an American tax form, for me to fill out. But you will get the extra forms to sign and go through if you are an American. Due to our beautiful FATCA regulations, they came out with the Obama administration and have made life very, very difficult for expats abroad trying to open accounts and to invest abroad. It's very difficult, and I hope one day the U.S. gets rid of that law. So anyway, after going to 3 banks today, I finally got a bank account open, thank God. And it was about a 2-day process, and you'll have to do the same thing. You go in and you talk to banks. And my recommendation for the best money changer is Vasu, which is under the Nana BTS station.